Alright, in today's video we have a few interesting topics to go over and discuss. The first has to do with Sony apparently not being in charge of their annual Destination PlayStation 2020 event. Instead, they're going to be handing it over to a major distributor or retailer. So that's going to be interesting, and the reason why we're going to discuss this is because apparently the person who is confirming this is making it seem as though the reasoning why Sony is choosing to do this is because they have another massive event planned in February at the same time or around the same time, and they don't want to have that get in the way. So very interesting. We're going to discuss that. We're also going to discuss how Microsoft is apparently very excited for E3, at least Phil Spencer is, because he came out and immediately confirmed that Microsoft would in fact be going to E3 2020 right after Sony confirmed that they would not be attending E3 2020. So I want to discuss that, and if we have time in this video, there's also an interesting article that I came across from GameSpot, and it's titled "Why Sony is Smart to Skip E3 2020." And so if there's time, I will go over that. I don't want this video to be like 25 or 30 minutes. If I can't, I'll just do it in another video. But starting here with the Destination PlayStation event, says Sony has reportedly decided to hand over control of its annual Destination PlayStation event to a major distributor. According to journalist Mike Futter, the event is held in February and is a behind-closed-doors affair where the console manufacturer reveals its plans for the year to various partners. So this is what he actually had to say. Here's what I'm hearing from multiple sources. Just needed to confirm something before sharing. Sony is not hosting Destination PlayStation, its annual closed event bringing together publishers and retailers. The event will still happen, but hosted by a retailer. The event is usually in February, which could mean that Sony wants the spotlight and doesn't want to do a second event in the same window when it does its full reveal for PS5. So for those who are wondering, this is pretty much close to confirmation that, yeah, Sony is going to be doing something significant with the PlayStation 5 in February. I don't want to spend too much time discussing this because most of us are already anticipating this. We haven't gotten any type of official confirmation. We've just gotten a bunch of leaks and rumors, but this is apparently a real thing where Sony is not going to be hosting the official Destination PlayStation event themselves. They're still going to be doing it. Obviously, it's very important that they do that, but they're going to put it in the hands of apparently a major retailer. We don't know which one. And so this tells me that Sony is going to be having their big PlayStation 5 reveal event in February. I think the way Sony's going to be announcing this is once people get their invites, once these outlets and publications, once they get their invites to this event, I think Sony's going to tell them you can let everybody know that you have officially been invited to this event. I think the closest thing we have to a big tease at this point, and I could be off the mark on this, but Jeff Keighley, he is the individual who creates and hosts the Game Awards every year. He put out a tweet yesterday saying that he just got off the phone or got a call about something really, really cool, and that's all he said. But everybody, or at least a lot of people, are assuming this has something to do with PlayStation, considering all of the rumors that are starting to surface, and there's just this kind of buzz surrounding PlayStation right now. And so it's also worth mentioning it comes not too long after Sony officially confirmed they won't be doing E3 2020, but they have their own plans going forward. So maybe it does have something to do with PlayStation. Hopefully we'll find out soon. But moving on from that, talking about Xbox at E3, says Xbox boss Phil Spencer has talked up the importance of E3 in 2020 following rival PlayStation's decision not to show up. Writing on Twitter last night in the wake of Sony's announcement, Spencer said his Xbox team was working hard on the show. And so this is what his tweet actually reads. Our team is hard at work on E3. We look forward to sharing with all who love to play what's ahead for us. Our art form has consistently been propelled by the cross-section of creativity and technical progress. 2020 is a milestone year in that journey for Team Xbox. Hashtag Xbox E3, hashtag E3 2020. What this really means is still unclear. Microsoft essentially preempted Sony's departure by taking itself off of the E3 show floor a year earlier, beginning with E3 2018. Not that you'd have noticed, Xbox still put on a big show around both E3 2018 and 2019. It's just the show was limited to its own event, held at its own cavernous Microsoft Theater down the road. It was from here the company broadcast its big E3 press conference, and here it demoed games to press and fans, all separate from E3 itself. That's not to say Xbox won't return to the E3 show floor this year to demo Xbox Series X, of course. Microsoft may opt for a bigger showcase in order to get even more people hands-on with its new hardware. But even if it doesn't, the message behind Spencer's statement seems pretty clear. Xbox fans can still expect the usual big news drops and reveals from Xbox alongside E3 itself in the run up to Xbox Series X's launch in time for Christmas. So I thought this was interesting because, you know, it's it's just another, it's another sign that Microsoft is trying to be a little bit more aggressive, which I'm actually all for. I think it's great that Microsoft is going to have their own time in the spotlight, and I've seen some people who claim to have inside knowledge, which we're not going to discuss in this, but I've seen some people making it sound as though they know things that are going to be going down that are PlayStation related throughout the year, some major announcements that are going to occur. And what they've made it seem like is that it's actually a good thing for Microsoft that Sony is not showing up at E3, because if they did, they would essentially steal all of their thunder. Now, I don't know how much I believe that. Obviously, I am incredibly excited for what Sony has to show and what they're going to be revealing throughout the year, but it's going to be interesting to see Sony and Microsoft kind of go, whether they want to or not, and I'm saying this mainly towards Microsoft, whether they want to or not, they're going to be going head-to-head this year, and it's going to be very interesting to see who has the bigger announcements, who has the bigger reveals, who ultimately has the more exciting reveals. And something else I wanted to add to this, this is actually before, this came out before Sony actually revealed that they're not going to be going to E3 2020. Apparently, there were some rumors coming from VGC, citing unnamed sources, said the publication, which has provided plenty of reliable information in the past, writes, "We understand that Xbox's events team is working under the assumption that PlayStation will not be at E3 2020 and is upping its plans accordingly." So I thought that last part was particularly interesting because it seems as though Microsoft knew ahead of time that Sony would not be doing E3 2020, and because of that, they're apparently going to be upping their plans, whatever that means. So it does get me a little bit excited. You know, I have been very down on Xbox for quite some time, and I'm all in with Sony and PlayStation. I'm not 100% in yet with Microsoft. I want to see what they're going to be doing, what they're going to be showing. As I said before, I think what they did with the Xbox Series X reveal, and more specifically with the Hellblade 2 reveal, was a great start. And so I want to see how they continue to build off that momentum with E3 2020. I'm hoping that they have an incredible show, honestly. Like, that's what I want. I want to see some really good-looking games, some exciting games, some new stuff. I want to see what there is beyond Hellblade 2 and beyond Halo Infinite, and for that, I have to admit, I am excited, but I'm not going to lie to you, I am much more excited to see what Sony's going to be doing outside of E3, because I have a good feeling that whatever Sony does do, regardless of how great Microsoft's show may or may not be, regardless of how good their marketing may or may not be throughout 2020, I just get this looming feeling, and this isn't the fanboy in me talking, I just have this feeling generally that Sony is going to I don't want to say completely, but in a big way overshadow a lot of what Microsoft does. And we're actually going to discuss in a separate video a good reason for this, because recently Matt Booty went on record saying that they're not trying to go head-to-head with Sony, which I think is a huge, absolutely huge mistake. Or maybe it's just because that's not what I want to hear. I don't know, but I want to give my thoughts and opinions on that. I'm not going to do it in this video, but I just think this is really interesting, right? Like, you see this dynamic where it's kind of creating a divide, where Microsoft is like, no, we still support E3, it's going to be a big deal, and they're pretty much going to be the biggest presence, I'd say, probably, at E3 this year, and we know that there's a lot of, I'd say, Xbox fans who still want to believe, maybe it's because Microsoft is still attending, that E3 is just as relevant as it's ever been, and it's still a massive deal, and, you know, Sony's making a mistake by not going to E3, but I think Sony, again, I said this in my last video, I'll just repeat it one more time. I think Sony already proved in 2019 that they do not need E3 to generate excitement or hype, but I think you're really going to see in 2020 with the PlayStation 5 how they really don't need E3, and that E3 may actually could have really used Sony. And as unfortunate as that may sound, I do think that's the truth. But it's going to be very interesting, guys. It's going to be interesting to see when Sony does their big PS5 reveal event. All signs are pointing that it's going to be in February. And it seems Microsoft is banking pretty hard on E3 2020 being their big show of the year. So we're going to have to see how that all pans out. But before ending the video, I want to take a little bit of time here to go over this interesting article, read a little bit of it from GameSpot, where it talks about Sony and why they think they're making a really smart move by skipping E3 2020, even with the PS5 coming up. So it says here, it makes sense. Sony removing itself from E3 again this year might seem shocking at first glance, given the company's overall history with E3, but it's not all that surprising of a decision. The show's profile and popularity is generally understood to be diminishing. E3 remains a major event on the calendar, but for a heavy hitter like Sony, the event is becoming increasingly irrelevant, and that decision, or the decision to abandon the show for 2 years in a row, is clear evidence of that. The appeal for E3, at least during a time, was that it provided huge mainstream media attention. That may still be true for some companies and developers, but Sony does not necessarily need E3 to achieve that. Like Nintendo, Sony is in the enviable position of being able to generate a huge amount of attention from mainstream media and fans alike from holding their own event. People had an easier time understanding Sony's absence from E3 2019 because that year the company had relatively fewer high-profile games coming out, and it was also too soon to start talking about the PS5 in an official capacity. Some have commented that Sony's absence from E3 this year is especially curious, given 2020 is the year of the PS5 and The Last of Us Part 2, but Sony can generate as much or more attention by conducting its own briefing on its own terms whenever it wants. Separating from the pack gives Sony the opportunity to cut through the noise and blast its signal loudly and to more people than it might have otherwise where it was confined to E3. Not only that, but floor space at E3 is not cheap, so this move saves Sony some scratch during a year where budgets are likely tight already with the ramp up to the release for the PS5. For the PS4 reveal in February 2013, Sony rented out the ritzy Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City for a multi-day event that led to international news attention for weeks. While not confirmed, you can expect Sony to do something similar for the PS5 reveal, creating an event that's dedicated to the system and what's coming next for the PlayStation brand. The PS5 logo reveal at CES 2020 was a start, but Sony is surely planning something much bigger and brighter to showcase the PS5's most exciting new features. So yeah, I just wanted to read that section of this article that came out from GameSpot because I actually thought it summed it up pretty well and did a good job explaining in a very concise manner why it really is a smart move for Sony not to attend E3 this year. And yeah, you're going to see a lot of people trying to make it sound like it's not, but all signs are pointing to it's fine. In fact, it's actually a really, really bad thing for E3, not Sony. So that does it for the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. Be sure to leave the video a like if you did enjoy it or found it informative. Really helps it out. Lets me know you guys enjoy the content. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.